Good evening. I'm Dana Stone, the Executive Director of the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra, and I'm here this evening with Ty Stover, who is a narrator and a longtime collaborator with the ICO, and we're going to be talking about one of the three new virtual education programs that we've developed this year as a way to continually connect with students in the Indianapolis area at a time when coming into schools and bringing children to us has not been possible, and how we've kind of adapted to continue to reach them and maybe reach way more children than we ever could in real life. So many of you have heard about our What Makes Music American program, which is focused on grades 4 through 8. Today, we're going to be talking about the program Tall Tales and Long Tales, a little play on words there, for grades K through 3. So I'm going to hand this over to Ty and let him tell you more about himself and his connection to the ICO.
This is dangerous to just hand something over to me, but
I think you got this.
I guess I've been doing this piece in particular, the Peter and the Wolf, with the ICO for this is my fourth or fifth time. Okay. And one thing that strikes me as a storyteller is that when we approach this piece, the maestro encourages people to look at the storytelling from multiple angles, meaning that the choices that a composer makes down to the tempo and the instrument that plays a line that represents a character, they create a color and a world to tell the story through music. And in the same way, the writer who put together the narration, maestro, used words to create a very compelling and engaging explanation and collaboration with the piece itself. It's a lovely experience and awesome to work with.
So in the past, we've been so fortunate to do this program in schools and have children, real life children, attending and hearing the orchestra live. And obviously that has not been possible this year, and it's not clear if it's going to be possible next year. So this program will be available to all schools in the Indianapolis metro area for free. It can be downloaded and requested through our website, through the Indy Arts Council, so that teachers and administrators can have access to this and the other virtual education programs. But can you talk some about the differences that you experienced as a narrator in a live environment with real live children, and what happened back in March when we recorded this program?
As an actor, I'm a professional actor. I've been in the Actors Union for just about 30 years. And you endow things, right? So you believe something is so in order for the audience to believe something is so. Mm-hmm. It's what we call the magic if. But in my case, I'm telling this story about ducks and little boys and wolves and birds. That bird. I had to endow the fact that I was telling a story to your background picture.
Right. That literally is from the recording.
There were some people there, right?
Yes, there were about 30 people in the audience. And of
was
course, the crew from WFYI was there. And we had some other special surprises, which we can talk about later. But yeah, essentially, Clues Memorial Hall, 2,200 seat theater with 25 to 30 people.
It's a cavern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, fortunately, in my mind, when we engaged with the piece, I was back at back at the elementary school with the buses of kids who have come in. We do, I think, is it Shortridge we do it
Yes.
at? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful space that is. And they've always been so awesome. And you can get quite a few kids in there. But doing it for 1,000 kids at the same time as doing it for 30 mostly adults, it's a different experience. And the energy of an actor is cyclical. So I mean, I create this energy and I throw it out into the audience and they absorb it and they respond and we get this kind of thing going. But there was very little of that. So I had to, you know, sometimes you do things for an audience that that doesn't necessarily respond the way you anticipate. Yeah. So in that instance, it's sort of training for a thing like this. The thing that is incredibly exciting to me is whereas, you know, over a couple of days or multiple performances, we might reach a few thousand kids. I mean, we have the opportunity to reach tens of thousands of kids now. And I think that's a fantastic prospect.
Yes. You know, you touched on the element that our musicians have experienced all year. We've been doing virtual programming since October of 2020, and it's hard to perform to an empty hall, virtually empty hall, not completely empty, but there's a vast difference between, you know, 50 people and, you know, several hundred people or more. And that's been a challenge that musicians have had to overcome as well. And I know back in May, we were finally able to have a live audience in Clues. And, you know, there was so much joy from both sides of the hall, from the musicians themselves and from the audience, because that give and take that you mentioned is a huge part of what we do. And a big part of what's been missing.
Absolutely. And well, for me, even at that point, being on a stage with the people, you know, I mean, there are people. Mm-hmm. We're not used to seeing people, you know, and as humans, we instinctively want to touch those that we know and embrace them. And it's really been a difficult transition for this hugger to reel it in.
Right. So yeah, and you know, this year, because we knew this program is going to be virtual and it can live on and on and on. We'll continue to get the rights as needed to continue to share this program for year after year, so that more children that could ever experience it live can experience it. But what we did was bring in some children from the Indianapolis Children's Choir to be a part of the performance. And maybe you can talk to that a little bit, but it was a way to kind of fabricate children in this production that was all adults. Yes. I have not actually seen the piece yet, so I'm not sure how and exactly they are incorporated. Yes, we do have a little excerpt we'll share at the end.
But it was as if, and I'm assuming we were doing tight shots of them, as if they were doing shots of these kids sitting in the audience responding, because the piece is experiential in that there's a physical component there's an auditory component, a physical component, and a literary component to the telling of this story. So auditory being the orchestra, words being me, and the engagement between myself and the kids and the different things we do to be the duck or the bird. But to backtrack a little bit, I was gearing up for kudos to the ICO for taking wonderful precautions to keep us all safe. There were plexiglass barriers, and everyone was spread out much farther than normally they would be, which again, I'm sure is very difficult as a player in an ensemble who is used to sitting right, especially like a string, used to sitting right next to that other instrument. So they are right in tune. I would assume that 6 feet makes it really difficult to blend. As a singer, I would have that problem.
It's been a challenge. I think by the time March came around, they were more adapted to it. But it's also kind of, it's not just the string players that are used to sharing a stand and sitting right next to each other. It's from one end of the string section to the basses and the first violins. That's like 35 feet now, which is a massive difference, especially for a chamber orchestra that is typically, intimate, and we're close together, and there's a lot of conversation between the instruments. It goes back to kind of everyone must rely on the conductor.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And it's been a process, and we've worked through it, and we're looking forward to some normalcy, and to not having to be 6 feet apart and 12 feet for our wind players. You'll notice in the recording that they're quite spread out, and that's because, of course, they cannot play with the mask on. So yes, we certainly went through every possible safety protocol that we could do to keep everyone safe, and we were able to do so successfully all year. So we're very thankful for that. Everyone played a part in that.
Good job on that.
Yes. Yeah, so let's go back to those kiddos and the fun little hand motions that they did. So that's something that you kind of created and brought to the program, right?
Right. Well, traditionally there is a physical component, but there are different treatments of the story in which different things happen to. This is a A1 friendly, nobody dies version of Peter and the Wolf. So we're not dealing with life and death. We're dealing with it's getting tense and chasing, lots of chasing, but everybody makes it out a-okay. And I think the favorite thing the kids like to do is this kind of little stare off into space and smiley kind of slap on the thing. And that's Peter just kind of walking through the woods. They have always engaged with that. They always find that very funny. And they like the bird.
Yeah.
Duck.
I thought it was fun when talking to those kids. They were like trying to tell us, this isn't a duck, this is a fish. I'm like, well, it's a duck today.
Well, it's a duck today. What was, I mean, the other option we had was this, and I was thinking that's a little bit too much like a doggy paddle, or but the duck is it's the duck on top of the water.
Right.
Quack, 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 quack. I don't know.
So actually, we'll take a little break from our conversation now, and we're going to hear the finale portion of Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf, where you'll hear some of these characters and you'll see some of these kids doing those fun hand motions.
Above them flew the bird, chirping merrily. My, what brave fellows we are, Peter and I. Look at what we've caught. And if you would, listen very carefully, because you might be able to hear the duck bringing up the rear as he was not eaten, but cleverly waddled away to quack another day.
Thank you so much again. That was such a fun experience to hear that again and to see those kids doing that. And your little hand motions added so much to the experience. And I know kids will really connect with that as they see their peers on the screen. But thank you so much, Ty, for your time and for sharing this wonderful program and being a part of this collaborative project.
Always a pleasure.
Looking forward to more live collaborations in the future.
Absolutely. Live or virtual, it's always great. Have a good one.
Yes. Thank you so much.